Caitlin Clark is the greatest player in the WNBA right now, currently. And I said last week, like, she's the LeBron James of the WNBA. She's got the market appeal. She's got the ability to reach young fans. Her game is amazing. And then the only thing that's missing is just being able to win a title. Welcome to episode 277 of Empty the Bench here on the Empty the Bench podcast network presented by Playback. He's Anthony Balester. I'm Nick Morgasen. Follow our show on social media at ETB Sports, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at ETB Sports. Follow the Empty the Bench podcast network at ETB Network, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Follow our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network as we get closer to 1,000 subscribers. So please like and subscribe by hitting the button below. If you can't listen on the video site, listen to Empty the Bench wherever you get your podcast. Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I could go down the whole list, but we'll be here for an hour just talking about that. But yes, listen wherever you get your podcast. This is going to be changing. We're moving from Substack. We'll do a few more things, and then we're going over to Playback. So all our shows, including ours, will be live on the Playback side going forward starting June 1st. We'll make an announcement about that, but that's the plan for the time being. And Empty the Bench is presented by Playback. Check out everything we're doing. NBA playoffs, Major League Baseball. We've had NASCAR. We're doing soccer. They even have the French Open. They got tennis for the first time. So check all that out. Playback.tv/ETB Network. Tune in later on in the show to find out more about how to get to that as well. Okay. So again, very similar episode to last week. A lot of interesting topics, not many, but it's going to take us some time to get through all these topics. We're going to get into the 2025 NBA playoffs. Again, some interesting headlines coming out of both sides of the conference finals. Tyrese Haliburton's dad apparently allowed to return. You and I don't agree with that. A massive injury in the WNBA, which is going to hurt not just the ratings, but the money aspect as well. And how will the WNBA return, or how will they adhere to the adversity of it? Aaron Rodgers, still undecided. Gee, what a shocker. Tempers flare over the tush push. This is the most ridiculous thing in the entire world, including your owner with the Bills, who does the tush push, is against it. So we'll break all that down as well. The NHL Playoffs, which actually been some of the best I've seen in quite a long time, actually. And then we'll finish off with the UFC. So let's get underway. The 2025 NBA playoffs. We are currently in the Eastern Conference Finals. The day we're recording this, we're actually going to be watching Game 4 of Knicks-Pacers. That series has been an interesting one. Back and forth a little bit. All the games have been close. The Knicks, I don't know if you saw this, they made a little bit of history over the two series, the Celtics and the now Pacers. I think it's 3 times they've come back from 20-point deficits in the fourth quarter. I mean, you would think they would be winning more games if that was the case. But what do you make currently of the way that series is going?
I think it's got to be, undoubtedly, Nick, got to be the most exciting series so far in this NBA playoffs. I mean, each one of these games have been a nail-biter, and particularly that Game 1. I mean, that was absolutely insane comeback by the Indiana Pacers. And, you know, for them to go out in the Garden and pull that off, and then with Tyrese Haliburton saying, screw it, I'm going to try to, rip your throat out and go for the win, and then his foot to be just on the inch, like it was like Kevin Durant all over again. And then they go to overtime, and the Pacers really put it on them. And then basically the same thing almost happens in Game 2, where it's basically a close back and forth, and the Pacers were able to pull it out. Then the Knicks are in a Game 3 situation where they have to win. No team ever comes back from 0-3, and you're down by 20 points. So, I started to think, well, damn, maybe Nick Morgasen was right. Maybe the Pacers are going to get the Knicks out of there in 5 games. And then the Knicks showed some heart, Karl-Anthony Towns had one of the best fourth quarters you'll ever see. I mean, I think he had like almost 20 points in one quarter.
20 points. Yeah.
That's absolutely unbelievable. And he was in foul trouble. So he had to make sure he scored points while also not getting another foul, while having his best player on the team, Brunson, who was dealing with foul trouble. So Karl-Anthony Towns really put this team on his back. You know, a team that desperately needed with Jalen Brunson doing it all season. So, man, they showed tremendous heart, and I can't wait for Game 4 because this series has gone really close and down to the final minute in each and every game. Every single one of these 3 games could have gone one way or another.
See, I guess the name of the game for the Knicks, and you've kind of alluded to it already, was foul trouble. All 3 games. You would think the amount of foul trouble that the Knicks were in all 3 games, there was no way they could have won any of those 3 games, including in Game 3. Jalen Brunson had 4 fouls going into the half, which, by the way, that's on the Knicks for not taking him off the court. I think Karl-Anthony Towns had 3 fouls going into the half. You would think that would spell disaster. And Jalen Brunson got his 5th foul early in the third quarter. So, that, in my opinion, I thought that was disaster. But the Knicks are resilient in some ways, and they find ways to say, oh, we're down 20. I was joking with a colleague from work the other day where I said, you know what? We should just give the Knicks a 20-0 deficit to start the game just so that they can work their way back. Because it seems like every time they have a huge deficit, they find a way to kind of turn that switch like 10 times harder to come back. And maybe, I don't know, maybe they're not front runner type of team where they don't play with leads. They have to kind of make it harder on themselves from time to time. But the thing that bothered me, and I was on MTGP last week, and people gave me a hard time over the hacking situation with Mitchell Robinson, and people were not understanding. And I'll say it to you, and maybe you'll understand what I'm talking about. I got very annoyed. I don't like the off-the-ball hacking. I wish they would put a rule in place to stop, because, one, it's not entertaining to watch. How many times do you want to see Mitchell Robinson get hacked and go to the free throw line? No one wants to see that at all. And people all over the MTGP social were saying, well, you're trying to protect bad free throw shooters. When did I ever say anything about bad free throw shooters? I just said it's a horrible tactic. You're basically saying, I don't want to play defense. I'll just keep hitting him until he makes his free throws.
Yeah, I'm absolutely on your side, Nick. I mean, I understand, the chess game that these teams have to play, and you got to do whatever you can. Any loopholes you find, you got to exploit to try to win the game. But at the end of the day, for the fans who are paying money to watch this product, it's definitely not good for the viewership. And ultimately, that's got to be one of the most important aspects. And when you get 2 teams that are very, very close in a series that could go either way, you don't want it to be decided, based on, whether a guy's making his free throws because another team doesn't want to play defense. Now, if he just can't make his free throws and he just fouled normally and you cost him a game, that's one thing. But to be intentionally fouling him so he can miss it, that's not good for the viewership, and it's not a good competitive way to win. Just play actual defense.
And people say to me, well, then tell him to hit his free throws. I'm like, you go to the free throw line, being an NBA player, how much pressure it is to hit those free throws in the playoffs. It's not easy. I get it. Should he be a better free throw shooter? Yes. In my opinion, you should be at least a 70 to 75% free throw shooter to survive in this league. But for the longest time, we had the Hack-a-Shack rules, where it originated from. Let's just keep fouling Shaq because he can't make his free throws. And then they finally progressed that rule to the final 2 minutes, I think, of every quarter. You can't foul somebody intentionally off the ball. And why not just make the rule? You can't intentionally foul somebody. It makes more sense. And people got incensed with me on social media when I said the rule should be like a defensive 3 seconds, where if you commit a defensive 3 seconds, it's a technical foul. You pick the free throw shooter that goes and takes the technical free throw. If you foul somebody intentionally without the purpose of making a basketball play in any way, like you're putting your hands up or you're doing something to block a shot, they should treat it as a defensive 3 seconds and a technical foul, and you get to pick the free throw shooter you want. That would deter people from hacking.
The only thing, Nick, is how many games, in the fourth quarter where teams are just trying to stay into this game and they have to intentionally foul. I think that would hurt a lot of teams who are trying to come back, and you may not see as many comebacks if it's always guys like Steph Curry who are always making those free throws at the end of the game.
But I also think it would change the efficiency at the free throw line, because if that was not allowed, more people would make their free throws, or they would attempt to make their free throws when they get hit. So in my opinion, it's helping the game. First of all, if the flow of the game is not interrupted, you will get a better game, a more competitive, closer game. Because think about the last 2 minutes of a game. What is the biggest joke about the last 2 minutes of an NBA game? Do you know?
Was it all the timeouts and stoppages?
It's the longest 2 minutes in professional sports. Forget the timeouts. Forget the commercial timeouts. It's all the fouls. All the intentional fouls. It's bad for the game. It's not a good look. But all people want to say to me is that you're protecting bad free throw shooters. I could care less if you're a bad free throw shooter or a good free throw shooter. I don't care. They need to come up with teams need to come up with a better strategy than just say, I'm just going to go punch somebody or hack somebody. Put your hands up and play defense. That's my whole problem with it.
No, I absolutely agree, Nick. You definitely want to see competitive basketball. I got no problem if there's if there's no shot clock on, there's 15 seconds left and, you're down by, 2 or 3, then yeah, you have to foul. But like you said, when you're intentionally just doing it on a guy, that's not a free throw shooter. I'm talking about situations where it doesn't matter who has the basketball, you're fouling that guy either way. But when you're, specifically targeting an individual player, it's definitely bad for the viewership.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite is when Mitchell Robinson would get fouled with 8 minutes left in the second quarter. And I'm like, why? Why? Play defense. And also, I guess, because everyone says, oh, it's strategic. Is it really strategic the amount of times you foul somebody? You're going to put yourself in the penalty quicker by doing it. You're taking intentional fouls, so you're adding fouls to your ledger by taking fouls. I don't see how it's a strategic move. I just don't. And I forgot what series it was. I think it was the Celtics series or the Pistons series where they left him out there until they got into penalty and then they took him off the floor. Which series was that? Do you remember?
That may have been the first one.
No, the Pistons series? Yeah, I think you're right. They left him out there purposely because they knew they were going to foul him up until the penalty situation, and then they pulled him off the floor. I don't know. I'm still not sold on the Knicks 100%. It all depends because Game 4 is after our recording currently that we're doing now, but I think somehow the Pacers are going to play angry and come back after losing that deficit. But if the Knicks win the game, completely different series going back to New York. That's what I'll say now. Let's talk about the other series. So OKC and the Timberwolves. This has been a weird series. So OKC wins the first 2 games handily. And then they go to Minnesota and they get trounced by, 42 or 43 points, which I did not have that on the bingo card. Minnesota winning game 3 by 43 points. Just did not see that one coming. But SGA, the true MVP of this year, has done what he's supposed to do in this series.
Yeah, he's been super clutch. And whenever he needed a basket or whenever he needed a play from him, he's really came forward for him. Now, ultimately, because of the way the series have gone, we've got a lot of blowouts, on both sides. So it really hasn't been the best series to watch. And it's basically just been, a series where either one team, is dominating the other. And it seems like for the most part, though, outside of, game 3, it has been predominantly dominated by OKC. It seems like OK's defense has been able to limit a lot of what Minnesota wants to do. In game 1, Julius Randle had a pretty good game, but they were able to limit Anthony Edwards. Then in game 2, Anthony Edwards did pretty good, but then they were able to limit Julius Randle and the rest of the team. So what OKC has done is they haven't allowed Minnesota to really have their full arsenal all at once. And ultimately, OKC seems like a team destined to win. As great as the Pacers have played, and as great, and toughness and grit that the Knicks showed in these comebacks, I just feel like it's OKC's year to lose. It's their title to lose. I feel like just the way they play defense, combined with how unstoppable SGA is on offense, I don't see how a team can beat this team. I do think Anthony Edwards will be able to pull off one more great performance, and I think Minnesota could probably force this to 6 games. But I think that's probably as far as this goes. I think OKC wins this in 6, and I think they beat whoever wins between the Pacers and the Knicks probably in 6 games as well.
I do want to point out Jalen Williams had the game of his life in game 4. Like, he just came out from the get-go. It was just on fire. I mean, I'm looking at the starters' numbers. 3 of the starters, so that would be Shai, Jalen Williams, and Chet Holmgren, combined for, 95 points of the 128. That is insane. That is, I don't remember the last time I've seen something like that in 3 players. Shai was 1 rebound away from a 40-point triple-double. This guy is so good, and I think he has a chance to run off, almost like the Jokic situation, run off a few MVPs and win. And by the way, another fun fact about the MVP, I think the last 7 or 8 have been international MVPs, which that goes to show you how bad our basketball is here in the States. But this guy has been amazing. No one else really did much. That's kind of the scary part for OKC, though, where it's either all or nothing with them, and that's what gets them in trouble. But I like a guy like Alex Caruso on this team who's willing to play defense against Jokic in the last series, or is willing to be pesky on the offensive side and run the second unit. Hardenstein really didn't do it the other night, but he's been unbelievable with that long hook shot. I think the Knicks are kind of a little upset, just a little, that they don't have him anymore. But I do agree that this is really OKC's year, and if they don't win, they have every right to be pissed off. I think the only way that they don't win this year is if they beat themselves, because they're now up 3-1. That series is over. We could for all intents and purposes, we could say that series is over because Minnesota's not going to win 3 in a row. I feel bad for Anthony Edwards a little bit, even though in game 4, he didn't take a shot, I think, until the second quarter, if I'm not mistaken. And he kind of falls back into the Jimmy Butler mode where he just will not take a shot sometimes and gets very passive. And that's not Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards is a big put the ball in my hands type of guy and has to put shots up to get in rhythm. So he had 16 points of 5 of 13 shooting. See, that's not a typical game for Anthony Edwards. He looked off. Rudy Gobert looked off. He had 13 and 9, which is kind of characteristically low on the rebound side for him. But I think Minnesota's just toast at this point.
Yeah, OKC is way too good defensively to allow Minnesota to go off for 3 straight games. And I think Minnesota can't be upset. Not too many people when the playoffs started would have predicted them to make it all the way to the conference finals. So the fact that they've done this, I think they still are, a co-star away. If they can get a superstar to go alongside with Anthony Edwards and be that star 2, allow Julius Randle to maybe be the 3rd star, I think that would be a team that could win a championship. But like you said, Nick, all the pressure is going to be on OKC, and the only way I can see them not winning is like you said. You're going to get SGA is going to play good, but there are times where Jalen Williams and some of the other players can disappear offensively. OKC is always going to be good defensively, and SGA is always going to put up points. But sometimes they can lack offense outside of SGA, and that could be the one thing that could get them in trouble, especially if you go up against the Knicks or the Pacers with the Pacers depth when they can go 8 or 9 guys that can score on you and hit threes. That could be devastating. Where the Knicks, they don't have the depth, but the 5 or 6 guys they do have can all play, and on any given night can win you a game as well. So that could be the only thing that can cause them trouble. And also, they are a young team, so we got to see how this young team is going to play in their first NBA Finals. But yeah, I don't see any team beating them unless they do choke, like you said. The only team that's going to beat OKC is OKC themselves.
Yeah, because in my opinion, the Eastern Conference side is a little weak compared to the Western Conference. I probably would take OKC. Let's see, the order left of the teams. I'd probably go OKC, then I would go Pacers, and then the Timberwolves, and then the Knicks. That's probably the way I would look at it to rank the way the teams are left. But I think OKC and the Timberwolves are much better built than the Pacers, who, no knock on them. They're a really good team. But sometimes their offense, they struggle big time. Then the defense gets affected by the offense. And then you see what happened to them. The other night, they blew a 20-point lead. But the Knicks are synonymous for coming back from 20-point deficits. So, I don't know. You and I think, are on the same page with both series. Like, I think OKC wins that. I think they're going to win in Game 5. I think that series is over. I think the Pacers win the series at some point. I just think the Knicks don't have enough. And the foul trouble in all the games is going to come back to bite them at some point. I don't know when.
I give you credit, Nick, because you're on top of the Pacers. When we talked about this last week, I said, I think the Knicks are going to win in 7. And you said, the way this Pacers team plays, look for them to maybe win this in 5 or 6. So I think you might be onto something with that.
I mean, I was kind of concerned with the way they lost Game 3, though, the Pacers, because, like I said, that should have been a runaway. It should have been a runaway, but the Knicks are so resilient that they don't let deficits die. So if they somehow win Game 4, this could go 7. Like, it really could, depending on how this goes. But for some reason, the Knicks are a terrible home team in the playoffs. I don't understand why, but we'll have to see what happens. Speaking of the Pacers, we got to talk about this. Again, the elephant in the room. Tyrese Haliburton's dad is allowed back at NBA games. Now, in case you've been living under a rock, Tyrese Haliburton's father got a little too, I'm trying to think of the right word, rambunctious, sitting courtside after, I think it was a buzzer beater against Milwaukee, I think. Or was it just a win? Do you remember or no?
I think it was just a win.
I think it was like a pretty significant win, too. I don't think it was close. Like, I think the Pacers blew out Milwaukee just because they were not healthy and all that stuff, whatever. So his father gets up, sitting courtside, and I think he's got a sign or whatever also, or he's putting stuff in Giannis's face. And that led to a whole, like, head-to-head, like, against one another, stare down. His father was, like, cursing at Giannis. And pandemonium ensued. First of all, and I said this when we talked about it, there is zero tolerance, no excuse for anybody. I don't care if it's his father. I don't care if it's a random fan from the middle of nowhere. Why are you going on the court? Why are you approaching players? That's a safety issue. Where was the security when you needed it? And we find out afterwards that his father is a real asshole from all the stuff that he said. But apparently now he's being allowed to come back on the court. And I'm just trying to find the story because I have it here. Okay, here it is. So Tyrese Haliburton's dad, John, will be allowed to attend Pacers home games in a suite. I see what they did there. They're not allowing him to sit courtside.
Yeah, it's going to take him way too long, probably like 15, 20 minutes, even if he wanted to get to courtside. So way too much time for him to want to do anything if he wanted to.
So basically, John Haliburton has not attended a game after it was decided he would not attend a home or road contest following the on-court confrontation with the Bucks on April 29th. Let's see. He will continue to remain away from road games. why allow him to go at all? Like, why?
Yeah, I don't understand that. I feel like, Nick, if this was just some regular, person or fan like me or you,
He would have been
we would
banned.
have got a lifetime ban from NBA facilities or any NBA event. So I don't think that this is fair. Just because he's Tyrese Haliburton's dad, now they're going to allow him to be in a box suite at home games. He shouldn't be allowed in any suite at any game, road or home.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's an upgrade, to be quite honest with you, getting able to sit in a suite. I feel like courtside's a little overrated, but that's just me. But if someone offered me a courtside seat, yeah, I'd sit there. But getting all the amenities of a suite, that's more of a positive, not a punishment, if you ask me. But I don't know. This whole thing got blown out of proportion, I feel like, a little bit too. But when you act like a jerk, you get treated like a jerk. That's how it should be. And I don't know. I think the Pacers are playing with fire a little bit here. Unless they're using this as like a fire him up, let's go. But this whole thing is a disaster.
Oh, they're definitely going to have him on the Jumbotron, firing up the fans when the Pacers game starts. So that's probably why they're having this done. But, man, I think this is a slap in the face to all those fans who just decided, hey, I'm going to run onto the field one time. They get arrested, go to jail, and get a lifetime ban. But, yeah, this guy, a month later could go back to NBA games?
Yeah, I mean, so Haliburton apologized on social media after that game happened. Quote, I sincerely apologize to Giannis, the Milwaukee Bucks, and the Pacers organization for my actions following tonight's game. This was not a good reflection on our sport or my son, and I'll not make that mistake again. Well, you would think you would know not to do that the first time or not make that mistake. But this is like favoritism in that regard, where you're just like, all right, we'll just allow him back in because we can't say no to our star's son's father coming back. And now he's claiming like, oh, I was out of line. Why didn't you say that after the game? Like, why didn't you say that after the game if you were a jerk and didn't handle it properly? But I think you said it correctly, that if this was a fan in any way, shape, or form that wasn't famous, by the way, they would have been arrested and charged with trespassing and never be allowed to go, not just an NBA game, maybe nowhere anymore. I think this is a mistake. I think that the Pacers should have just said, you know what? We don't need this headache. Just watch the game from home or whatever. We'll give you accommodations. We'll give you a hotel on the road if you want to be around your son or whatever. But let's not make waves. Come on, man. Like, I don't know. I'm wondering if the league was involved with this or not.
Yeah, I feel like they had to be.
Well, this is saying the Pacers are allowing him back on the court side, or not court side, in a suite. You really think the NBA would have allowed it? I doubt it. I think the NBA would have said, just keep him away. It's a distraction. Just enough. But I don't know. Empty the Bench is presented by Playback. Watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much of our time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience, from playing fantasy sports, repping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. And now back to the show. Speaking of Indiana, we'll go to the other side, the WNBA. Caitlin Clark is injured, and this is a huge problem for the WNBA. She's going to be out for 2 weeks, and here's the dilemma that the WNBA has. So the injury is an upper quad injury. Apparently, she's been dealing with it since training camp, apparently, and hadn't really said anything. They have another big matchup. Well, if they were two of them were playing, Pacers, Fever and the Sky, which we saw the fireworks. We talked about it last episode. And now they're not even going to get that matchup. So according to like Tick Pick and everything that sells tickets, they were originally like 85. They're dropping to like 31 or $21. It says the last time these two teams met, the game drew an average of 2.7 million viewers. Like, that's big for a WNBA game. Yeah, so the Sky Fever game on June 7th, $86 just 48 hours ago, is now down to 25. So that's value in itself. I mean, they were supposed to play at the United Center because they were expecting a huge, huge crowd. And now you don't have Caitlin Clark. What's the point of watching the game anymore, right?
Yeah, this is a huge blow to the WNBA and, league that's obviously been on the upwards and has been obviously, in the news and being talked about a lot more. Everybody's obviously talking about them because of the rivalry we have between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. And Caitlin Clark, was a main reason of why, the recent success and the recent, boom with the WNBA. And honestly, not just in the WNBA, but this has got to be one of the biggest rivalries and most talked about things in all about sports. This is something a lot of people like to watch and tune into. And it's unfortunate that we're not going to be able to see these two great women go up against each other. Because honestly, I love seeing it. I love seeing their styles match. Like I said, you got Caitlin Clark, who's the finesse player who likes to shoot threes and dribble and make passes. And Adrian Reese likes to play defense and rebound. So seeing these two people go up against each other, it's a real rivalry. It's not just for basketball purposes. Personally, it doesn't seem like they like each other. Especially what happened last game, that made this upcoming game that much more watchable. So it's unfortunate. The WNBA will probably lose quite a bit amount of money, but I hope Caitlin Clark makes a full recovery and we get to see her make more highlights, and maybe we get to see her play Angel Reese again later in the season.
Yeah, I mean, is it a blow? Yes, but eventually she'll be back. I was telling Anthony, because it's much different than like the NBA scheduling than it is the WNBA scheduling. Technically, she's only going to miss 4 games. For 2 weeks in an NBA schedule, what would that be? Like 8, 9 games usually?
At least 6 or 7.
So depending on the weeks, like if there's national games and all that stuff, it could be less or more depending. But it's a big blow. They're going to lose money. The United Center thing is a huge blow because they were expecting huge numbers, and that's why they moved it to the United Center where the Bulls play. I mean, because they were going to sell the arena out. They were. Not even a question in my mind. But you talked about last week where the Bird Magic comparison, I don't know if it's exactly the Bird Magic comparison, because I think Caitlin Clark is more dominant than Angel Reese is on the offensive side of the ball. I think Angel Reese is one of the best rebounders in the WNBA. Is she working on her game? Yes. But Caitlin, it's a one-sided debate. Caitlin Clark is the greatest player in the WNBA right now, currently. And I said last week, like, she's the LeBron James of the WNBA. She's got the market appeal. She's got the ability to reach young fans. Her game is amazing. And then the only thing that's missing is just being able to win a title.
And the same thing is she's only in her second season. So, like, this is like the equivalent to, like, can you imagine if Jaden Daniels becomes the best quarterback in football this upcoming season? That's essentially what she's done. I mean, she's breaking, like, all-time records. Like, she's played not even a full 2 seasons. She's breaking all-time triple-doubles and all-time scoring records with, like, between what she's doing with the assist and scoring. So it's absolutely unbelievable, the stats that she's putting up at such a young age.
Yeah, and one of the issues I would say from a business perspective is the WNBA's got to develop more. They can't rely, because the NBA has this issue a little bit too, where they were relying on LeBron for how many years? Just game after game. LeBron is slowing down, even though he made, what did he make? Second All NBA, I think, at the age of 40, which is still incredible to me, even though I don't like the guy. But you can't. The NBA has some stars in waiting. at least, that they can build on in SGA and Jokic and Giannis when he's healthy and Victor Wembanyama. And what does the WNBA have? That, don't get me wrong, there's a lot more talent in the WNBA pool than there once was. But how many names are you rolling off the top of your head for the WNBA that you are for the NBA? Let me be clear. I am not putting down the WNBA. It's a much greater product than about 5, 6, 7 years ago when the WNBA was an afterthought. And I mean that literally. Now it's not an afterthought. We have the ability to watch the games with our playback partner. We do a WNBA whip around on Fridays now because of it. Liberty are a great team to watch. The Aces in Vegas are a great team to watch. They're talking about putting a team back in Seattle.
And we have some other good young players too. Obviously, maybe not to the level of Caitlin Clark, but Cameron Brink, what she was doing as a rookie before injury, what Paige Beckers now is going to be doing as a rookie. And don't forget Juju Watkins, when she's able to be eligible to come in, and when she recovers from her injury, she's going to be starting the WNBA too.
That was a tough injury, by the way. When that was during the March Madness game, right? I forgot who USC was playing when that happened, but that was sad. Like watching her get hurt because she had that trajectory to go. Now I don't know if she was going to go off to the WNBA after this season, but now it's going to be a little bit more of a longer road to get there. But when she's healthy, that's going to become like the Caitlin Clark level person again entering the WNBA. But the WNBA relies on Caitlin Clark a lot. And you can't rely on one player constantly. The LeBron James thing was a rarity. Coming out of high school, which is not allowed anymore, obviously, but he went right from high school into the WNBA. I remember when ESPN was they were carrying his high school games. So, he had a built-in audience. Now, I think Caitlin Clark had that from the Iowa level where ESPN was carrying almost every game of theirs when she was close to breaking the all-time points record, and I think the three-point record too. But WNBA needs backup. And I don't know if Angel Reese is exactly a backup to Caitlin Clark. Backup by meaning behind her, but not on the same level. I don't know. Do you see enough behind there? I like Paige Beckers. Paige Beckers is going to be great, I feel like. And I also like the Liberty. I like the way that heck, they won a title this past year. That's the first time New York's won any title in God knows how long. Did you have it on the bingo card that the next New York title was going to be in the WNBA? Because I certainly did not.
No.
So this is significant. She'll come back. I'm not worried about it. As long as she doesn't have a season-ending injury, because that would catastrophically kill everything that the WNBA has its money on, for sure. Speaking of undecided and crazy, not that I want to talk about this guy, but Aaron Rodgers, still undecided on the future. Gee, you don't say. I'll let you take this one first, because I could say a lot, but I need a breather before I hit this topic.
Yeah, it's getting ridiculous. I mean, Aaron Rodgers was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he was doing another talk show, and I'm starting to lose count and forget all the different talk shows he's doing. And it's funny because everybody's sitting there, waiting to know what's going to be his decision. What's his future? Is Aaron Rodgers going to retire? Is he going to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers? What's he going to do? And he's talking about everything but football. I mean, Aaron, the only thing people want to hear out of your mouth is what you're going to be doing in the 2025 NFL season. We don't care what's going on. And he's saying, I got some personal things I need to take care of before I decide on football. Well, how are you having time to go on these podcasts to talk about, the government being behind the AIDS pandemic or what Fauci's doing? But I thought you had personal things to take care of. So I don't know what Aaron Rodgers is doing in his life. And I ultimately think he's going to probably decide to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But, of course, Aaron Rodgers is going to continue to drag this around so we can continue to talk about him.
Trying to be nice, but it's hard when I had to deal with him as a Jets quarterback. But I'm kind of tired of it already, and I've said that before, where he's just going on podcasts, like random podcasts too, ones I've never heard of, like, and just the HIV situation was created by the U.S. government. First of all, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. It's not a virus. I don't know exactly how to refer to it, but HIV has killed a ton of people for decades. There is no cure for HIV. Why do you think they're raising so much money for scientific research to find a cure for this thing? Heck, one of the biggest athletes of all time who had HIV is behind the campaign in Magic Johnson. I mean, you're basically telling Magic Johnson, oh, well, what you have is a fake and the U.S. government made it up. Think about that. Like, I wish he would just keep the yap shut, figure out what team he's going to play on, and stop with the nonsense. Because every time he does something, it makes me think of this.
RELAX.
That's like the only thing I hear, like, because he's such a head case. It's like, so get off the damn podcast, figure out if you're playing football or if you're going to retire. We'll get to that in a second because that's a whole other thing I want to talk about. But in my opinion, he should just walk away from football because he's so enamored in media that he should just go off and do a podcast or join a network. By the way, I think he would get in trouble for being on a network. That's just me. He reminds me a little bit of Paul Pierce and Draymond Green a little bit, where it's like very loose cannon and you just got to be prepared for things that could come out of their mouth. That's why Draymond's actually good in media, because he's willing to tell it how it is. But at the same time, Draymond will get in trouble for some pretty ridiculous things that he says. Aaron, too. I'm surprised Aaron has not gotten in trouble for some of these things that he said. Because this was a pandemic for a long time. I mean, he was going around and saying, don't take the vaccines because of this, and that. First of all, he sounded like a complete jackass going after the vaccines. But I think that's what caused his reputation to take a huge nosedive, because he's not worried about football. I don't know. Like, am I off base in any of this? Like, I don't know.
No, you're definitely not, Nick. And obviously, I'm an advocate if players want to have interests outside of football. But what you hear Aaron Rodgers, like you said, very rarely is it about football when it comes out of Aaron Rodgers' mouth. And this isn't the type of way you hear Tom Brady or Peyton Manning or some of the other NFL greats and players that know how to win football games and win multiple championships. They're more worried about what they're going to accomplish on the season. Aaron Rodgers doesn't seem like he hasn't even thought about what's going to happen in 2025. And that's probably why he won't retire, Nick, because he knows people want to know what he's going to do next year and what he's going to do in his future. And once he retires, he loses all that. So I think he's going to continue to play just for the aspect that he continues his name on ESPN headlines, and he continues to have people talking about him on a daily basis. So he'll drag this out as long as possible. And it wouldn't surprise me, Nick, if we don't get a decision from Aaron Rodgers until probably the eve of right before training camp starts in July.
I kind of hope it doesn't come down to that, because I want this circus to end because it's so annoying. But I need to blame one specific show for blowing him up like the clown show he is. You know what I'm going to say, right?
Yeah, a certain retired former NFL punter show.
Yes. Pat McAfee and his show basically allow him to spew his garbage everywhere, and it becomes headlines because Pat McAfee is known for making headlines. And if I'm not mistaken, I think they pay him like $1 million or something to be, because he pays everybody on that show that appears. But people need to take the microphone away from Aaron and say, hey, go play football. If you want to play football, go play football. I don't know if you saw the other day. Did you see the whole interview that Danica Patrick gave?
No, I didn't see that.
Because the two of them were dating.
Yeah, I knew they used to date, but I didn't see her recent interview.
So she came out and said that she was emotionally abused by Aaron Rodgers. And I said to myself, you know what? I believe it, because this guy is a little too I don't know what I want to call it, like eccentric, I think is the word, where he thinks very outside of the box, but like so far outside of the box you can't even see him where he is. Like, we've seen his relationships deteriorate. We've seen, I don't know. Like, I believe, and first of all, Danica's not a perfect angel herself by any means, but he needs to retire. He needs to retire. If I'm the Steelers, I would say, bye. We don't want you. I think it's a mistake. This is not Pittsburgh Steeler traditional norms, bringing in an Aaron Rodgers. You really think they're going to want to deal with that?
No.
Like, if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, if I put you in that room and you see that Aaron Rodgers might come, what are you thinking inside that Steelers ownership?
Well, that you're going to get a quarterback who's not going to, be about the team or be a great leader or lift up players. He's just going to come in there and make it about him and make it about him about the team. So I think you don't want a quarterback like that. You want a leader who's going to uplift players and be a guy you want to go to battle with. I think Aaron Rodgers is not a guy you want to go to battle with.
Think about Mike Tomlin, which most people are not talking about, by the way. Mike Tomlin is what? A traditionalist head coach by every sense of the word. If you're not doing what you're supposed to, what does Mike Tomlin do? He's going to tell it how it is, or he's going to sit you down or bench you or whatever. Even though the Aaron Rodgers rules might go into effect, which I kind of hope they don't. But
I know Mike Tomlin is used to having, divas and big personalities, but those guys are usually at the receiver position. He doesn't tend to have those guys at the quarterback position. The quarterback position, he tends to have guys who are more about the team, like Ben Roethlisberger, like Russell Wilson, like Justin Fields, like Mason Rudolph, good, hardworking guys. You don't see, big prima donnas at the quarterback position for Mike Tomlin's teams.
I mean, if you want to go down this a little bit, Ben Roethlisberger had his issues off the field, the motorcycle accident and all that stuff. But he was, for the most part, about football when he was on the field. Won a ring because he was able to focus on football. Now, what was the year Aaron won his ring?
I think he won in 2010, the 2010 season.
So it's been a while. I see it getting worse before it ever gets better. If I'm the Steelers, I would say, don't come in here. Like, go away. You're going to destroy the locker room. Speaking of prima donnas, George Pickens, who they traded away. I mean, they don't have any receivers. Why would Aaron go there? Like, what does Aaron have to gain going to Pittsburgh? Does he have anything to gain?
Well, they do got a great defense, and he did bring in DK Metcalf.
But I'm saying, like, what are they going to reach with Aaron Rodgers that they were not going to reach with somebody else?
I think they can finally get past the first round and get to the second round of the playoffs, and I think that's better for them, and I think that's better for Aaron Rodgers, who would probably prefer to end his career in the second round of the playoffs instead of winning 6 or 7 games.
I don't know. I think the judge and the jury will be the determination of that, but we'll see what happens. I'm just done with the whole Aaron Rodgers saga, to be quite honest. I know I'm a little closer to it as a Jet fan, but it is what it is. Speaking of tempers flaring, by the way, tempers flare over Tush Push. Now, this was wild to me because the Eagles made a cash cow over this play. They won a Super Bowl because of it. I think some NFL teams blew this way out of proportion, in my opinion, including their Bills owner over there, which I was kind of surprised because I think by percentage they were the second most to do it behind the Eagles. Why do we have to take the fun out of the sport? Can you explain it to me?
Yeah, it got real crazy, Nick. And I mean, ultimately, we were very close from this going the other direction. They needed 24 votes. They got 22. So I think it's inevitable. I think eventually they're going to get those two other owners to switch their opinions. And I wouldn't be surprised if next offseason or the offseason after that 22 becomes 24, 25, and this play does get kicked out. But Nick, I'm on the side of keeping the play. I don't think they should get rid of the play. I ultimately think, if it was that unfair, then every team would be able to execute it. The fact that not every team could execute the way the Eagles could do it, or the way the Bills could do it, or the way other teams could do it, is because they don't have the personnel, which means it does take some sort of skill to be able to do it. You can't just take any offensive line, any quarterback to do it. You got to have a strong power offensive line, and you got to have a smart, strong quarterback. So I think because of that aspect, you should keep the plan. And I like what the Eagles owner said. It's a win-win. Either you keep the play and we continue to benefit from using it, or you outlaw it, which basically acknowledges to the rest of the NFL that us, the Eagles, developed a play that was so unstoppable that the only way that you could stop us was to make it illegal. And I ultimately love the Eagles' attitude about it.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I'm reading the story here. Excuse me, that Jason Kelsey went and lobbied for the play. He's a retired player, and he's going to lobby for the Eagles. It goes to show you that the play matters. The play, people think that the tush push is just like a bunch of guys like lining up in a line, and everyone just piles over like a bunch of bricks. It's like you said, you have to know how to do every aspect of the play. There's like 6 or 7 moving pieces that are involved in a tush push. And Jalen Hurts, which by the way is a human squatter when it comes to weightlifting. I think they said like at one point he's lifting like 600 pounds in squats. Like, you need to have a quarterback that is strong and resilient and is willing to get dirty. And that's why they won a title. So, I don't know. I think people are overreacting to this quite a bit, including teams. And you were starting to say it that if teams feel like they're at disadvantage or they can't do it, they're going to say, oh, outlaw, it shouldn't be allowed. Well, go figure out how to do it then. No one's stopping you from going to figure it out. But don't outlaw it from someone who knows how to do something. That would be like in the NBA with the hacks, where, oh, well, we're not willing to play defense, so we're just going to hack your worst free throw shooter. See how I kind of rallied that back into what we were talking about? Because I think it's the same discussion in a sense, where you have a play that works, but the whole league is trying to get it banned. Just figure it out. Do better.
And I think it's because of player safety, Nick. And I don't think it's that unsafe. I mean, obviously players get hurt on any play, so every play is technically dangerous, especially run plays. But I think it's because of the injuries. I mean, when you think about it, you got a bunch of offensive, defensive linemen who are all, between 260 to 350 pounds, who are all piling up against each other. So I guess some NFL owners, including Terry Pagula, who was one of the people who their team benefits from it, but yet he still wanted the ban, was more concerned about the overall competitiveness and the overall safety of the game.
Yeah. You know what? They tried to, and I still laugh about this from a couple of years ago, when they tried to make pass interference a challengeable play, which, by the way, it screwed over, who was it? It was the Saints, I think. The Saints-Rams game. And what did they do right after it? They took the rule away because it didn't work. Because pass interference is discretionable. So there's no way to determine if pass interference happens, in a sense. So if it's all based on discretion, it's either you make the call or you don't. With this, there's not really that discretion. It's either you do it right or you don't. I mean, heck, look what happened in the game against Washington. Did you know, like when the refs, because Washington kept jumping early near their end zone, did you know that they could award a touchdown the way they said it?
Yeah, when the referee announced it, I was shocked. But it definitely makes sense because, when you're playing Madden against somebody and you keep getting offsides on somebody, the game will just continue. So I always wondered what would happen if someone did that in real life. Well, I guess for the integrity of the game, the NFL will start taking away or awarding points if you do that.
But like I was shocked, and I'm like, I get it because you could just keep jumping off sides until the quarter is over. But it goes to show you how much of a threat the tush push play really is. Teams should just adjust and learn how to do it. Now, the Eagles are some of the best at developing their big men down in the center. Jason Kelsey was perfect. He was willing to take the flattening at the bottom of the pile, and that's what made that play so good for them, in a sense. So it also doesn't help. I think what owners are thinking about is their wallet at the same time with these quarterbacks when they're doing the tush push. I don't want my guy ending up at the bottom of the pile and getting unnecessarily flattened. But I don't know. I think this was silly. I think they should throw this out. Do I think eventually it's going to get banned because the owners are going to be morons about it? Yes. And then people are going to be, oh, you shouldn't have banned it. Well, tell the owners is what I would say. All right. Let's see what we have left. You want to hit this topic up a little bit here?
Yeah, the NHL playoffs. One series hasn't been that great, but the other series has. You had the Florida Panthers, who are trying to go to their third straight Stanley Cup. They won a couple years ago, lost. Last year they went and won, and now it looks like they're destined to go for a third straight year. They were up 3-0 on the Carolina Hurricanes, absolutely destroying them in the first couple of games. And then Carolina was able to show some grit and toughness, winning Game 4. Ultimately, the Florida Panthers are still up 3-1, so they're probably going to end up winning the series anyways. But it just goes to show you, Nick, how great this Florida Panthers team is. They got everything. They got goaltending, they got scoring, they got defense. And what I like about them is a lot of their forwards are two-way forwards, where not only can they score, but they can shut down the opposing top scorers as well. So that makes it really tough. And then you look at the Edmonton Oilers, who are trying to go back to the Stanley Cup. Last year we had the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers. We might get that again. Edmonton Oilers are up 2-1 over Dallas. They almost should be up 3-1 because the one game they did lose, they were up going to the third period, and the Dallas Stars, I think, scored like 3 or 4 goals and ultimately won that game. But Connor McDavid's been playing well, and it looks like right now, being up 2-1, if they can win the next game, we might get a rematch with Edmonton versus Florida. And Connor McDavid, the best player in the world, is trying to finally get that Stanley Cup he's supposed to desperately been trying to get.
Yeah, the NHL playoffs, again, not my biggest sport, but a lot of close games, a lot of overtime involved. I got to get more into it. I don't know. For some reason, it's never been like the sport. I don't know why I can't get into it. Like, I can sit and watch basketball. I can't really watch baseball anymore. I still feel like it's too slow. I can watch football. I can watch college football. For some reason, hockey, I can't get into as much. But once the Stanley Cup comes around, I try to watch it. So we'll see on that front. And then quickly, let's talk about UFC Fight Night.
Yeah, obviously we didn't have any UFC last week, so we got a UFC this upcoming week. Not a huge big card, but definitely a nice little UFC card to watch over the weekend. The one fight that I want to highlight is Matthias Gamrot going up against Ludovic Klein. This is a really big matchup in the lightweight division, probably one of the top 3 divisions in all of UFC. Matthias Gamrot, who, may not be a title contender, is probably just outside the top 5. You know, he's pretty much the best guy in the next tier under a title contender. And he's going against Ludovic Klein, who hasn't lost in his last 7 or 8 matchups. Now, this is a huge jump. You're talking about a guy who hasn't fought a ranked fighter. Now he's going to be fighting a guy who's just outside the top 5. So if he can go on and get this win, he's going to put his name on a short list of title contenders and as probably one of, if not the top prospect in that division. But ultimately, Nick, I think this is too much too soon. I think a guy who hasn't fought a ranked fighter should fight a guy somewhere between 11 and 15, not a guy who's just outside the top 5. So I think Matthias Gamrot will win this. But, man, if Klein goes out there and wins, he's going to be a name we're going to have to watch.
So I guess the one question I have, because I was talking to Zan about this too, do you see issues currently with the UFC, the way it's being run, and just not the quality of product it once was?
Yeah, I think what's happening is we're getting a lot of guys who aren't fighting the guys we want to see. We got a lot of guys ducking certain fighters or delaying fights that ultimately the fans want to see. Also, we're getting a lot of our older superstars who are starting to age now. So the UFC lacks a lot of these up-and-comer superstars like a Conor McGregor and some of these other guys that we grew up watching. And now with Dustin Poirier's retirement fight coming up, We are going to start lacking superstars. And I also think too with the UFC is, UFC used to only have a few events each year, but each one of those events were great. Not because the UFC has to put on so many events to get UFC each and every week. A lot of the fighting cards are kind of diluted a little bit because all these great fights being on one card now are getting spread out to multiple cards. So you're only getting maybe one or two good fights a week, where before you were getting 10 good fights every week. So ultimately, you got to pick your poison. Do you want to watch UFC every week and get mid cards, or do you want to watch one great card each month? I'd prefer the one big card each month.
Yeah, I want to see the big fighters. That's the fights that at least I know the names. Like you and I were talking about the O'Malley's of the world. Like, even though he got destroyed. Who was the guy he got destroyed by again last fight?
Yeah, he lost to a Maraba Jaswalashvili, but he will get a rematch coming up in June.
I was kind of surprised because usually when someone gets beat down as bad, a lot of times they don't allow the rematch, right?
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what we were saying, Nick. The UFC lacks star power. So I think because of that, a guy like O'Malley is going to get the benefit of doubt and get a second chance because he does put fans in seats and he does get pay-per-view buys.
I don't know. It's crazy. And then obviously the whole McGregor thing just getting worse and worse and worse. I don't know if you saw the story, by the way, that McGregor reportedly was trying to buy OnlyFans also.
Yeah, and I also see he's trying to run for president of Ireland. So this doesn't seem like a guy that's going to be fighting in the UFC anytime soon.
He seems like a head case more than a UFC fighter. And I'm checking really quick before we end the show to see if that story is still up or if he removed it, because he's famous for dropping a tweet and then saying, "Oh, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I removed it." Oh no, it's still up here. I think it's still up here. But first of all, that would just be a horrible thing if he ever pulled that off in any way. But I kind of feel bad for Chandler a little bit because that was supposed to be like his big break fight. And like that would have been the moneymaker fight. And the UFC lost on it too because they never got the payoff to the Ultimate Fighter. So it is what it is. But that'll do it for this episode of Empty the Bench. Make sure you follow us on social media at ETB Sports, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Follow our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network. Make sure to like and subscribe. Help our numbers as we get closer to 1,000 subs. Listen to Empty the Bench wherever you get your podcasts as well. If you can't watch on the video side, all available podcasting platforms. So take your choice there. And even though we're putting this up, ETB Substack is heading over to our Playback platform where we watch all our streams, which is why we're presented by Playback. And check us out where we do basketball streams, baseball streams. Soccer is coming very soon. UFC fights on there as well. So plenty of stuff to check out and exclusive podcasts. We have some programming heading there as well. So check that out. Whew. All right. Any last words before we go?
Yeah, I just want to say I hope Caitlin Clark, I hope you get better soon.
Yeah, that's a big blow for the WNBA if she doesn't come back soon and all the big venues they had planned. But that'll do it for episode 277. He's Anthony Balester. I'm Nick Morgasen. We will be back next week for 278. Have a good day, everybody.